good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Oak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. As always, so grateful to be here. And it's a little trying to be grateful right now on day 666 of the heat wave out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm sure some people may get that joke because it is hot. I mean, hot outside right now. So wherever you're at, be grateful that you're not in Phoenix or Scottsdale, Arizona right now, because it is just, I think I said on the last episode, yeah, it's always hot here. But there's a point when you've lived here for 30 plus years like I have where you just hit the wall, right? And I think it's like in the last week or so, and I think this is the case with a lot of folks, it's like we're used to hot, 110, 115, like it happens. It gets to 120 every once in a while, but like, after so many days, it just wears on you. You're like, okay, done. And I think I can collectively say as a state, we're done. The good news is we're coming up on August. August doesn't really cool off a ton, although there's a little cooler temps in the future. But we know that the end is in sight, right? The end is in sight. And man, I know you don't tune into the Unlicensed Counselor for a weather update in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona every week, but my God, it has been boiling. So anyways, just grateful to be here. I don't care what temperature it is. And in fact, so much so that I even went and did some hot yoga this morning. So it was hot on hot this morning here in Scottsdale, Arizona, but having some fun. And for me, that's really been the yin to my yang. I'm kind of an intense guy sometimes outside of the microphone, and I was missing that balance in the yoga. And boy, have I found a lot of value and benefit to that. And continue to encourage people, if you're hearing this, wherever you're at, sign up for a class, take it. Not what the topic is today, but just thought I'd like to plug that as well. What I do want to talk about today is kind of going back to tried and true in my roots is alcoholism, right? Specifically, I want to talk about some of the benefits of AA. I was actually talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she's like, have you talked just about AA in general? And I said, I really haven't. So I just want to share some of my thoughts, opinions, and feelings around Alcoholics Anonymous and the benefits that it's brought to my life. And hopefully it may bring to some other folks who are struggling in your life some pros and cons. And I've heard all of it. I'm coming up on 9 years on September 11th here this year. So I got a little bit of experience. I've been in and around the program, worked at a treatment center, took people to meetings. I've heard all the excuses for not liking it, for hating it, all of these things. Just thought I'd share a little insight into that in case those folks that are out there who may be struggling with addiction, may be in recovery, may have someone that should be in recovery or moving towards recovery. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and I'm excited to do so. But put a pin in that right there. Before we get going, I want to thank our friends at ShareTech as always. Look, I don't know if folks know this right now. This country, we are at an all-time high for drug use, period. The previous all-time high was 1979. Coincidentally, I was born in 1979, but I don't think that's either here or there, Robin. I see you laughing. I think that's just a coincidence. But we are at an all-time high right now. And I don't think parents or people are aware of that. People hear about fentanyl. They hear about how it's killing people. But the truth is, recreational and regular drug use is at an all-time high. Why am I bringing that up? There are tools that can help in your own family, right? There are tools like drug and alcohol testing. It doesn't mean that you have to be doing it all the time. But one of the biggest things that I'm a proponent of is drug testing and having that test sitting on the counter, specifically of middle or high school. And yes, I'm including middle school students. It is not too early. The data says that average age of first use is in 7th grade, right? So by the time parents find out is usually about 18 months after that. So, it is not too early to get a drug test, put it on the counter at your home, use it as a deterrent, and use it as an out for your son or daughter so that when they're going out to a party or friends or whatever, and they're getting peer pressure to, potentially smoke, snort, take a pill, whatever it is, they can say, love to, my stupid parents. They've got this, ShareTech drug test that's sitting on our counter right here. It tests for over 100 plus drugs. And, the detection window goes back, a significant period of time, and it can't be cheated. So, there are more benefits to drug and alcohol testing than, yes, just finding out what's in the system. It can be used as a tool of prevention and allows your son or daughter to have an out. And the reason I bring that up is obviously we're going back to school. I think I talked back to school last week. Go to betterdrugtest.com right now. Pick up one of these bad boys. put it on the counter. A couple things are going to happen. You're going to have a conversation with your son or daughter about, what's going on. And this is a great time to do this as you're starting out the year. And by the way, if you then suspect, I get that word eventually, something, they went home, came back, smell like booze, bloodshot eyes, big bag of Taco Bell, whatever it is, you know what? Maybe it's time that, hey, we need to actually use the screen that we bought. So again, thanks to our friends at ShareTech. Go to betterdrugtest.com, pick up this test. It is, $100. It's $100 for a reason, not these $20, $30, $40 cheapy tests on Amazon. Because when you need to know, you need to be using the ShareTech test. So next up is our friends at Easy Sheets. You know me, my favorite subscription, EasySheets.club, $50 every 2 weeks, once a month. You pick how frequently you want the sheets sent to you, professionally cleaned and pressed, just like you're sliding into that hotel sheets, whether you're in Hawaii or wherever it is. You're going to get that same experience, getting into your bed every single night. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to worry about when you washed your sheets last. They come pressed in a sealed bag, delivered right to your front door. Take the old ones off, put them into a prepaid bag, drop them off at any post office or UPS store. They get sent back to our place where they're professionally cleaned and pressed, and then sent back to you as well. Go to EasySheets.club. It's honestly one of the more fun, relaxing subscription services you could have. Go to EasySheets.club. Trust me, you and whoever's sleeping next to you is really going to enjoy that. Again, visit me, find me on social media at The Unlicensed Counselor. Go to my website, theunlicensedcounselor.com, if you want to book some time with me and actually dig into a little more deeply on some of these topics, addiction or not related. Happy to spend some time meeting folks and kind of talking a little bit. And then again, my last plug before we dive into it is the Prevention Organization, the nonprofit that I founded with a group of individuals that, this drug and alcohol addiction is near and dear to my heart. We can keep building treatment centers. We can keep building outpatient programs. We can keep building beds. There's only one way that is 100% proven to never have addiction issues, and that's to never start, right? So we started an organization called Hard Stop. Go to thestopstartshere.org. And you're going to find, what our mission is about preventing youth substance use, right? We want to get to folks earlier in that middle school, in that high school. We want to give them reasons why through edgy, raw social media campaigns, not just same old statistics that get regurgitated throughout. We really want to be aggressive with our messaging, and we're going to need support from folks out there, whoever's ears are hearing this right now. Whether it's $5, $10, $20, you want to donate to our campaign to help our mission get to your kids' ears before your drug dealers do. Visit us again, thestopstartshere.org. You're going to see a lot of social media rolling out that way. So, okay, sorry for all those plugs this morning, but you do have to pay some bills in order to keep doing this stuff. So, back to the mission at hand. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, I feel like it's getting a little less mysterious over the years. It was really kind of smoky, dark, hazy rooms, meeting in church basements and things. And there's still, a decent amount of that exists out in the world. But I feel like it's less shrouded in secrecy. And I want to continue to kind of open that up a little bit more, because I do think some of that can scare people away. Right. And look, I worked in a treatment center. It was what you call, quote unquote, a higher end treatment center. So we had a lot of resistance to people thinking that this was only for kind of bottom of the barrel drunks or people that they're just kind of dragging in off the streets. And there is some of that. And that is the beauty of it, of how it puts people from all these disparate backgrounds together in a room to share their experience, strength, and hope. And I think that's where the power is. In these rooms is really the person who's 17 minutes sober and the person who's 17 years sober, and kind of bringing them together and putting all this other stuff aside and being able to check the ego. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about my experience in AA, and I'm not going to go through the 12 steps and things like that. If you want to Google it, great. If you want to go to a meeting, even better. Look, if you're thinking about you may have a drug or alcohol problem, you're more than welcome to just walk in the door and kind of put your hand up or sit next to somebody and ask them a couple questions. If you're just curious about what the organization does, you're more than welcome to walk into the rooms as well, too, and just kind of learn, hear, and observe. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give any money. You can just show up. It doesn't cost anything, and just kind of learn about what goes on. And I encourage people to do that. When my journey in drug and alcohol addiction started again, I think I even talk about it in episode 1. I'm not sure what we're on, episode 20 something or something now, which is kind of crazy in and of itself. But I remember the very first time I ever walked into a room at AA. There's a North Scottsdale Fellowship Club. It's right off Scottsdale Road and Shea. Sorry, super hyper geographic reference. It's not going to apply to everybody, but if you're ever in town, it's right next to a bar, shockingly called Ernie's Inn here in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's a true story. I spent a lot more time at the bar than I ever did in the AA rooms initially, right? But I think it is kind of ironic how it is sitting right next to that. But I had just gone through treatment. I had crashed and burned in my freshman year of college up at University of Colorado, where any good pot-smoking drunk would go. And the year was 1998. I crashed and burned. I wasn't even 20 years old yet before I had to come home and enter an inpatient treatment center in a place called Chandler Valley Hope. I think they're just called Valley Hope now. And when I discharged from there, I was very excited about my recovery, and I'd been exposed to AA through the treatment center program that I was going. I didn't live in that part of town, so when I was back, I had to find kind of a new area, a new group to start attending to. Well, I was 20 years old. I was still nervous and intimidated by the whole thing. I wasn't with kind of the treatment center, the white van groups that pull up and kind of drop people out and smoke and then go into meetings and then come out and smoke and leave, right? That I had to ask my mom to come with me to my meeting. I'm thinking Joe Cool, tough guy, and here I am, kind of sneaking in the side door at an AA meeting, and I had to drag my mom to it, which actually it was whatever gets you in the door, gets you in the door. But it also got her exposed to kind of what goes on in those rooms as well, too. And she actually attended more than one meeting over the years with me as well, too. And both my parents have actually as well. And I think it's kind of, neat to be able to include others in the process and, again, to kind of demystify it. Because one of the things that I firmly believe in AA as well, too, in terms of, not just the not drinking and getting better part, is I just feel like it is a healthy way to live, right? I think it's a healthy way to live for anyone, whether you are a recovering alcoholic or drug addict or whatever. I just think that there's principles of accountability, responsibility, peer support, kind of experience sharing, camaraderie, emotional catharsis. Like there's all these things that kind of just help kind of broken people like myself when we walked into that room start to rebuild their lives. And I've often said that I don't think we should just be holding it back just for, people who are in recovery or who want to stop drinking. I just think that there's a great way to kind of design a life kind of within those rooms that could be shared or applicable to others, right? So, something I wanted to kind of talk about today was just, the benefits of 12-step as a good way to live and really what that could kind of look like. And I think the number one thing is kind of self-reflection, right? So you're able to kind of go in there and start to take a look, be around people that have been through similar things. You can take an honest look at your behaviors, at your past problems, and start to get some self-awareness and maybe start to develop some accountability while you're in there and kind of learning. And look, the cool part I think about AA as well too is you can just sit there and kind of soak it in until you start to get comfortable, right? You don't have to come in and just start spewing. Some people do, that's fine, a lot of personalities and opinions on the right way to do things and how you get old timers and grumpy people and new people who talk way too long, just like with any walk of life, by the way. So people get critical of AA, of all these types of things. And I'm like, you get that at church too, right? You get that in the office. You get that on your kids' sports team. So it's just a snapshot of life, but yet we have this one thing in common, that we all had a drinking problem at some point in our life. So again, as you're walking in the door and trying to find, kind of some reflection in there, let's try and eliminate the ego, take away all the other things that are trying to distract you, which is really your brain kind of saying, I want to focus on the negative here so that I can kind of position myself as differently. I don't have to listen, and, I can kind of push that off the side because it doesn't apply. Try, and it takes a long time to kind of be able to quiet that noise down. But just try and get in there, and you don't have to say anything. Just be quiet, listen, and start to do some reflecting. And as you get a little more comfortable, I think you'll find that maybe you'll want to start chiming in. You'll start hearing some things. Maybe you agree with some things. Maybe you don't agree with some things. Maybe you want to ask some questions, right? And there's a lot of questions to be asked, and I'll start to touch on those things here in a second. But I think the next reason that AA is really a solid way to live is kind of the acceptance side of this thing, right? There's the whole steps process, where everybody's heard about the 12 steps and kind of going through that and what that is. But, you know, I just think there's a greater feeling that comes along with working through this process, identifying kind of your weaknesses, finding some humility, a little self-forgiveness along this way. We've all made mistakes. Everybody who's sitting in that room has made, a lot of mistakes, some more severe than others. They've lost a child because they're in a drunk driving accident, or jobs and divorce. I mean, we've all had those things when you're sitting in that room. And so I think it's really healthy to just try and start to find some acceptance. And again, you don't have to do anything other than pull up a chair when you get in these rooms right now. And I want to keep saying that as you go through it, and don't feel like you need to go in and just start dumping everything or you're going to get fixed right away. Pull up in the back. People do this all the time. Pull up in the back, right? You can hide out. You can be the last one in, the first one out, whatever it is. But as you get more comfortable, and then start talking and start digging in a little bit deeper. But these are some of the things that I think you're going to find that it's a good way to kind of live, because of some of the principles that are just within this program, right? And so this kind of ties into personal responsibility as well, too. So this is kind of taking responsibility for actions that you have done, and not really just trying to hide from them. I mean, you've got to kind of pull and extract some of this stuff out of yourself in order to start moving forward. You're going to hear a lot of talk around making amends when you're in AA, and that's, a very AA thing to do, and there are steps that talk about doing that, and I believe in working these steps through to completion. And some people can do it very quickly. Some people take their time and move through it a little bit more slowly. Whatever that is, I think the personal responsibility that comes from that, and because then you have to go back and look and kind of address some of the things that you don't want to address, right? The crap that's been in your life. But I'm a big believer in kind of addressing those things in order to kind of move forward in life as well, too. And I think AA does a great job of helping people move through that process. And again, you don't have to go see a counselor. These are unlicensed people. I mean, yeah, it's right up my alley, right? But now you can start to kind of get some integrity back as you're talking about these things. And hopefully you're going to be able to turn the corner and start growing as well, too, as an individual, because you're taking some of the responsibility and talking about some of these things. And the other people in the room who have maybe been there a little bit longer and have kind of processed a lot of this work, they're going to be able to come alongside you when and if you're ready, right? There's things called sponsors when you're in there. It's a very common thing people have heard about. Don't be in a rush. I encourage everybody to do it, but I'm more concerned about getting your butt in that seat than kind of doing anything else. Because for some people, it's, if I can just get you there, like, that's a massive win. That's a massive win. And I don't then want to tell you to get a sponsor, read all the books, and do all this, and go to this many meetings. And it's like, just get there and like sit down, have a cup of coffee, chill out for a little bit, and then just try and listen. That would be my steps number one in kind of getting you there. And then from there, I'd say, let's start building some relationships with some people. I'm fortunate now in the place that I go that I recognize a lot of people, and they recognize me. The flip side of that is sometimes those people go backwards. But that's a part of the beauty of walking into these rooms, in my opinion, is I see people that I knew maybe went through treatment, went through outpatient, have been in the rooms for a long time, and then they'll slip. And, sometimes they don't make it back, meaning they die. And I should be more blunt when I say that, because it can be life or death. But what enjoys a wrong word to you, but what I get benefit from is when they come back in and go, it was even worse this time out, right? It was even worse this time out. So having those types of friendships, relationships while you're in there and connecting with others is not only going to help in your journey, but it's going to kind of help rebuild you as an individual too, because so many times our skills and friendships and things were built around drinking and booze and shots and parties and picnics and work events. And it's like all this, that, and the other thing. So you're almost like going back to, toddler stage of, this is how you talk to people and you create friendships, and this is what a community, and it's okay to, hug somebody or hold hands and say one of these chants or prayers or things that they do in the room. Like, you're literally like so oftentimes, kind of rebuilding things from scratch. But I think it's okay. But get to that when you get to that. Like, I don't need you to walk in and feel like you've got to be best friends with everybody in the room. Go at your own pace. If you know somebody that's in recovery, right, I think it's cool to just be like, can I tag along with you sometime? Like, I don't know what I'm looking for or not looking for. I'm curious. I guarantee they're going to say absolutely. And then just kind of tag along and see what goes in. Keep an open mind. You're going to be put off by certain things. You're not going to like certain things. You're not going to like certain people. And horses do their racing, they get those blinders on, right? Try and keep those blinders off. So when all those distracting things, which is really your mind trying to give you a reason not to hear this information, because it's kind of messing with you. So, there's other things that going on, like surrendering control, right? And now the steps talk about this stuff a little bit more. I'm not here to talk about the 12 steps today. I'm talking about how I just think it's a good way to live. And they just encourage you to kind of let go of the control thing, right? What did one of my therapists used to always say? Get out of the God seat, right? And I was like, I wanted to control everything and felt like my way was the right way and all this types of things. Now, one of the funny things is when you get into AA, you get a lot of isms and phrases and things like that. And there's a couple that, really stick with me, and I take some of it and leave the rest. Like progress, not perfection, is one that I use in business and my personal life and all those types of things. What it means to me is I'm always just trying to move forward. I'm not trying to be perfect. I don't feel that need to having to be in control and have everything be my way. And you know what that also does? It reduces my stress level. So again, that is a good way to be able to go. And I know some people are going to hear that and go, but that's what makes me successful and that's what drives me. I understand that you may think that, but there is kind of a balance in one's need to control and the anxiety and the stress level that kind of comes along with it. So I just think that there's some real benefits to being able to surrender in the control aspect and what AA can kind of expose you to in that. And then it's also just going to kind of help you continuously improve as well too. I think that it is a great place to go to have lifelong kind of commitments to just improving. It doesn't have to be done in a week or a month or whatever, that you can just kind of keep showing up occasionally. And this is what always happens to me. I'm going to hear something and go, oh, that's a great way of looking at it, or a great way of thinking, or I would have never thought of it that way, or it kind of challenges a preconceived notion or thought. And I'm like, that's something that I could take in my own life and apply it today and kind of put it into action. And there's so much wisdom that kind of comes out of these rooms, and wisdom from unlikely places, I'll say as well too. I always tend to go to Dennis Prager, right, for some of my wisdom as kind of America's grandpa is the way that I view him as. But all of a sudden, this guy who's kind of scraggly looking over here in the corner pipes up with something. I'm going, oh, damn, that makes a lot of sense. I haven't thought about it that way. And I'll immediately kind of file that away in my brain. I'm like, okay, that's something I can put in my pocket and walk away and hopefully take away from this meeting and kind of help myself and my journey, right? You're going to hear a lot of, just kind of skills, coping skills, just in terms around the drug and alcohol, side of this thing as well too. I think that's valuable. Obviously, it's valuable on the recovery side of things, but in terms of how it's just a good, healthy way to live, I just think it goes back to the control thing as well too. I think there's good stuff that could be applicable in terms of how you try and strangle hold of life. And just some other skills that kind of AA can inherently teaches you as you're going through the steps and kind of working on yourself as you get through this. I think that ties into the making amends part of this thing as well too. We've done a lot of damage along the way. People usually don't land on those rooms in a winning streak, right? So being able to acknowledge that, we want to try and find a way to reconcile that. What are some of the skills to help us do that so that we're not causing more harm to the individuals that we're out there trying to talk to, right? And making sure that our intentions behind those conversations are good as well too. But I would say arguably one of the biggest skills that I've taken away, and then I think again is 100% applicable outside of just the rooms there and the 12-step stuff, is just living in the present. I mean, that is a a common thing now in the mindfulness movement and things like that. But I almost believe, I don't know if it stems or starts with AA. And it is so important for those of us because we get caught in all the stuff that we did and all the other people that we hurt. And then we get spun out on things in the future as well, too. You mean that I'm not going to be able to have a glass of champagne when my daughter gets married? Well, she's 3. So that's probably, 20 something years out, maybe more, hopefully. I don't know. Is that something that we need to get spun out today on? Or can we kind of worry about the things that we control and focus on being a little bit more here and now and present? You hear the phrase one day at a time associated with AA, right? I know it's a little overused, but what you would be surprised at is folks who've kind of walked that path like I have myself. Sometimes those phrases and those things, as annoying as they can be sometime, are the things that we have to cling to when we're up against it, right? And when we know that we can get through today, or I can get through this next hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, that can give me the hope that I could just need to get through that. And if I have to get through it without drinking for that short period of time and not have to worry about making it through a week or a month or a year, like, it kind of brings me back. And so that living in the present now really helps me. And it's something that I use really probably every single day. I don't know if I say the phrase one day at a time every single day like maybe I used to, but being here and now in the present and finding ways to kind of be present, which again for me now has taken on the form of yoga and sports and things like that, time with my daughter. These are things where when I'm in those moments, I want to stay in the moment, but I also want to recognize that I'm having one of those moments and I'm like, oh, I'm here. This is great. I don't have my phone. I don't have my notification. Like, it's just us and we're singing Let It Go or whatever the heck it is that we're doing, right? And you can just have that little joy that it brings you. And I think that's really important. And again, applies 100% outside of these rooms as well, too. But there's the accountability side. I mean, obviously, I've mentioned the sponsor thing a couple times and how it's a good way to have accountability in your life. And I think that applies to business. I think it applies to church. I think it applies to having goals. I've talked about it in other podcasts and episodes as well, too. Having someone to help hold your feet to the fire, to help ask how you're doing, to see if you are staying on track with the things that you want to commit to is a great way to actually, drum roll please, achieve those things that you've asked the person to help you be accountable to. Same exact thing applies in our world, just in terms of not drinking. I mean, if we're having thoughts or we want to go do something, because our brains, physically, chemically are changed when we walk into the room because of prolonged drinking and drugging, right? So we almost need a surrogate brain to kind of bounce some of these crazy, messed up ideas that run through our heads that most sane people would never consider. So for us in a sponsorship sense, we're able to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And they're going to go, hello, no, bad idea. We're not going to do that. Make sure you call me every hour for the next hour to make sure you don't do that, right? Or whatever it is. But again, as it pertains to just a great way of living, accountability partner, right? Find it, try it, attach it to your goals that we talked about a couple episodes as well, too. Last couple thoughts on this as well, too, and this is a big one with people refusing kind of AA or not wanting to walk in the door is God, spirituality, Christianity, religion. What is it? You're forcing religion on me when I walk in the door. I mean, if I had a dime for every time somebody said that they don't want to pray or the God, or I'm not religious, or I'm not this, or it's a religious organization, all I hear is, I don't want to do the work that it takes, and I want to keep doing what I want to keep doing. And by the way, if what you were doing was working so well, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So you got to be kind of open to a different approach. And people use the God thing all the stinking time to kind of bow out or get out of the AA thing. When really, in a nutshell, AA is about spirituality, right? You'll hear people describe it a million different ways in the room. It's just about believing in something else that's not yourself, right? Because again, ourself and our decisions led us into that chair with usually a crap life. So being able to find a higher power, God, whatever that is, and believing in something else is a key central component that really helps in this process. Now, again, taking it to the outside world, I believe that one of the things in our culture that why we're just crashing and burning daily and keeping going down circling the toilet bowl is because this country has lost a sense of God and family and values and things like that. That's my own personal belief. So, I think that it's an important thing, whatever it is, Jewish, Christianity, Catholic, Muslim, like I don't care what you choose to use that, but the values, beliefs, communities that support those types of things are important into creating better people. And the further it appears that we get away from that, I think the evidence is all around us of things, going up in flames, both literally and figuratively here, at least in Scottsdale, Arizona, because it's 1 billion degrees. So I just think a spiritual connection, AA certainly wants to bring that as part of your recovery. I do think it's important outside of the rooms as well, too. But the number one thing that, the AA, and again, as it applies to the greater thing, is just helping other people. I was just reading another study that says, one of the best things that you can do to relieve anxiety and stress is helping others, right? The core principle of AA in terms of how you stay sober, here's a little secret. I say it at the end of the podcast, so you have to listen to the whole episode, is helping others, right? It's then turning around and you've got 2 days and helping the person that's got a day or whatever that time frame looks like. So encouraging others, helping others, being available to support. The principle is you want to help others, but the truth is you're helping yourself. Right? The truth is that you're helping yourself. And again, how does that apply out in the real world? Go volunteer, go to the food shelter, right? And maybe, doing it on Thanksgiving or whatever is nice, and Christmas, but if you can do it other times as well too, or coaching a kid's game, or going to the old folks' home and kind of, playing chess or Jenga or dancing with them, whatever the heck it is, doing stuff that helps others ends up helping you. That's really the secret, and the same thing applies in AA, and the same thing applies outside of the world too. So, again, this podcast topic today wasn't to dive into here's how to do the 12 steps and why AA is so great. I really just think it's a good way to live outside of this. So if you have somebody that you're thinking of as you're listening, shoot them this podcast, right? Maybe it's a fun little point of topic of discussion. You could talk over coffee or over dinner sometime. I hope you got a little bit of value and nuggets out of here. If you're curious about it, go to AA website. You can find AA.com is actually American Airlines. So I'm not sure what the exact AA website is, so make sure you don't land there. But go out, find a meeting, walk in the door. Cost you nothing, free, easy to do. Talk to some people. Yeah, they might smoke a little bit, no big deal. A little more vaping these days than smoking, but it is what it is, right? We're about saving lives and getting better. So if you found some value, shoot this podcast to another. If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all the usual social channels. And I think that's all we got for today. My name is Steve Moak. I am the unlicensed counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.